All right, so have you ever been curious about this whole undercover billionaire thing?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can you really turn $100 into $1 million business in 90 days?
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty intriguing idea, right?
It is.
But let's be real here. Is that even remotely possible for like the average person
Yeah, I think that's a really good question.
like me or you?
Yeah, yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
I mean,
Well, I mean, let's not forget, these undercover billionaires, they may be, starting with limited resources on the show,
right.
but they're bringing, decades of experience, like a whole network of, high-powered contacts
Yeah.
and a really deep understanding of how business works.
Right, they've got that built-in
Exactly.
like safety net almost.
Yeah, it's a massive head start,
Yeah, that's true.
for sure.
The Hustle and Grind podcast that we looked at, like they really dig into this with Glenn Stearns' journey.
Mm-hmm.
And like they break down how he starts with like scrapping metal and flipping a used car,
Right.
which seems pretty basic.
Yeah.
But how much did his like existing business knowledge play into those early wins?
Well, I mean, it's called bootstrapping, right?
Okay.
You're using minimal resources to generate that initial capital.
Right.
And that's, a valuable skill, absolutely.
Okay.
But someone like Stearns would, instinctively understand things like market dynamics and negotiation tactics
Yeah.
that most people would take years to learn.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So is the show even like a fair representation of
It-
what's possible, or are they kind of selling us a fantasy?
Well, the show does highlight, I think, some universal business principles.
Oh, yeah.
Like hustle, finding opportunities, building a team.
Yeah.
Take Stone's BBQ joint, for example.
Okay.
He saw a gap in the local market,
Yeah.
and he jumped on it.
That's like a classic entrepreneurial move.
Classic.
But would random investors like line up to back someone running a food truck just because they're charismatic?
Right.
I'm guessing like the TV cameras and the potential for exposure played a big role.
A huge role.
Yeah.
It's like having a built-in marketing machine
Right.
that, most startups could only dream of.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the average person starting a BBQ joint
Yeah.
doesn't get followed by a film crew attracting investors and customers.
Right. Okay, so maybe becoming a millionaire in 90 days is like a long shot
Yeah.
for most of us.
Yeah.
But there must be like some valuable nuggets to glean from this, right?
Absolutely.
It can't all be smoke and mirrors.
No, I think, think of it less about hitting the exact financial target
Okay.
and more about adopting that undercover billionaire mindset.
Right.
It's about resourcefulness,
Okay.
seeing opportunity where others don't and taking action.
So maybe the real challenge isn't necessarily becoming a millionaire,
Right.
but like launching a side hustle in 90 days.
Yeah.
That actually like makes a difference in your life.
Totally.
Something more attainable, but still impactful.
Now you're talking. Even if it doesn't make you a millionaire, the experience of building something from scratch is invaluable.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe it could eventually lead to bigger things,
Right.
Okay,
I'm liking this reframe challenge.
Yeah.
But where do we even begin?
Right.
The Hustle and Grind podcast suggests starting small,
Uh-huh.
like selling unused stuff.
That's a great first step.
Oh, okay.
It forces you to think about what people value, how to present it,
Right.
get comfortable with the idea of exchanging something for money.
Yeah.
Plus, it declutters your house, win-win.
Okay, I'm on board with that. What's next?
Well, think about your skills.
Okay.
Can you write design, teach, or code?
Yeah.
Platforms like Upwork or Fiverr let you monetize those skills
Okay.
without needing a fancy office or a ton of equipment.
Right.
It's a low-risk way to test the waters and generate income.
So we're talking about turning hobbies and passions into like actual income streams.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. What about scaling things up?
Oh.
Should we be reinvesting that early income?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The idea is to create a snowball effect.
Oh.
Maybe you upgrade your equipment, take a course to learn a new skill, or even outsource some tasks.
Right.
By reinvesting, you're accelerating your growth and opening up new possibilities.
Right. This is starting to sound a little less undercover billionaire and more like something achievable.
Right.
But before anyone runs off and quits their day job,
Yeah.
what about the risks?
That's a crucial point.
Okay.
Don't burn bridges prematurely.
Right.
Your day job is your safety net
Okay.
until your side hustle generates consistent income.
Okay.
Think of it as building a parallel track, shifting your focus gradually as your new venture gains momentum.
Okay. So we're not advocating for like reckless leaps of faith here.
No.
It's more about like a calculated approach building something sustainable while still being realistic.
Exactly. It's about balancing the excitement of starting something new with the practicality of maintaining a stable foundation.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like the first step is really getting clear on like what we can actually offer.
Right.
But how do we figure out if people even want it? I
Yeah.
hate to spend months building something that no one is interested in.
You're thinking like a true entrepreneur already.
Okay.
It's called validation.
Okay.
You need to test your ideas to see if there's an actual market demand.
Right.
It might sound intimidating,
Yeah.
but it can be as simple as talking to potential customers, doing some online surveys,
Okay.
or even checking out the competition.
So no more assuming that just because we think our idea is brilliant, everyone else will too.
Exactly.
We need data to back it up.
Right, data is king.
Okay, what happens once we've got an idea that seems promising?
Well, that's when we get to build what's called a minimum viable product, or MVP.
MVP, okay.
It's a bare bones version of your product or service that you can launch quickly and get feedback on.
Okay.
Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be functional enough to test the waters.
So we're talking about a prototype,
Yeah.
like a first draft, but for a business.
Exactly.
Okay.
The goal is to learn as quickly as possible,
Right.
not spend months perfecting something that might not even resonate with your target audience.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm starting to see the value in this,
Yeah.
but what kind of feedback should we be looking for?
Right.
How do we know if we're on the right track?
You want to see if people understand what you're offering, if they find it valuable,
Okay.
and if they're willing to pay for it.
Oh, yeah. That's the ultimate test.
That's the ultimate test, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about building something cool. It's about building something people actually need or want.
You got it.
Okay.
And remember, this feedback loop is ongoing.
Right.
You'll constantly be tweaking and refining your product or service based on what you learn from your early customers.
Right.
That's how you build a loyal following.
Okay. This is starting to feel a lot less overwhelming.
Good.
It's like breaking down a big, scary goal into smaller, manageable steps.
Exactly.
But what about getting the word out? How do we actually reach those potential customers?
That's where marketing comes in.
Right.
And thankfully, there are tons of options these days.
Okay.
Social media, email marketing, content creation, even good old-fashioned networking.
Yeah.
It really depends on who your target audience is and how much you're willing to spend.
So it's not just about building a better mousetrap. It's about making sure people know where to find it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You have to be proactive and find creative ways to get your message in front of the right people.
Right.
It might feel uncomfortable at first, but that's part of the entrepreneurial journey.
I have to admit, this all starting to sound pretty exciting,
Yeah, it's fun.
but I imagine it can also get pretty overwhelming.
It definitely can be a lot to juggle.
Right.
But remember, you don't have to do everything at once.
Okay.
Start small, focus on one thing at a time,
Right.
and celebrate those early wins.
Okay. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But what if we get stuck? Are there resources out there
Yeah.
to help us navigate this process?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are tons of resources available for entrepreneurs, especially online.
Oh.
Think online communities, mentorship programs, even business incubators that offer guidance support and sometimes even funding.
Wow. Okay.
Don't be afraid to tap into these resources.
So we're not alone in this.
No, you're not alone.
There's a whole community of people who are going through the same challenges and can offer support.
Exactly, and they want to help.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a lot more confident about tackling this 90-day challenge now.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
And remember, even if you don't hit $1 million, the skills and experience you gain along the way are incredibly valuable.
Right.
Who knows, the side hustle could even turn into a full-time gig one day.
Right. That would be awesome.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
We talked about validating our ideas, building an MVP, getting feedback,
Uh-huh.
and even marketing our product or service.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in, but it definitely feels more manageable when you break it down step by step.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of this 90-day challenge.
Okay.
It's about setting a time frame to create agency focus and a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Even if you don't become a millionaire, you'll have gained invaluable experience and maybe even discovered a hidden passion.
So while replicating the undercover billionaire scenario might be a stretch for most of us,
Right.
there's still a ton we can learn from their approach.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's about embracing that entrepreneurial mindset,
Yeah.
pushing your boundaries, and realizing that you're capable of more than you think.
Now, before we jump into some specific tactics and resources, I think it's important to address the elephant in the room,
Oh,
the potential pitfalls.
right.
What are some common mistakes people make when launching a side hustle?
Yeah.
What should we be aware of?
Well, I think one of the biggest mistakes is trying to do too much at once.
Okay.
People get excited and want to launch a website, create social media accounts, start advertising, and do a million other things all at the same time.
That sounds exhausting and honestly a recipe for burnout.
Exactly. It's like trying to juggle 10 balls at once when you've never even held one before.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
It's much more effective to focus on one thing at a time, master it, and then move on to the next.
So prioritize and stay focused.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. What else should we watch out for?
Another common mistake is not investing in your business.
Oh, okay.
People think they can bootstrap their way to success without spending a dime.
I'm guessing that's not always realistic.
You're right.
Okay.
While starting lean is important, you need to be willing to invest in things like marketing tools and education if you want to grow your business.
Right.
Think of it as planting seeds for the future.
Okay, so we need to be strategic about where we invest our resources.
Yes.
Okay, what about the human side of things? I'm guessing customer service plays a big role in all of this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Your customers are your most valuable asset.
Right.
And treating them well is essential for building a successful business.
So no more ignoring emails or taking days to respond to queries.
It's kind of
Prompt, be helpful, and go the extra mile to make your customers happy.
Right.
They'll not only come back for more, but also spread the word about your amazing service.
So it's not just about closing the deal, it's about building relationships.
Exactly. Think of your customers as your biggest fans and advocates.
Okay.
Treat them right, and they'll help you grow your business in ways you never imagined.
All right, so we've covered some of the common pitfalls to avoid.
Uh-huh.
What about those resources you mentioned earlier?
Right.
What are some specific places we can turn to for support and guidance?
Well, there are tons of online communities out there
Okay.
where you can connect with other entrepreneurs, share ideas, and get advice.
Okay.
Think Reddit forums, Facebook groups, even dedicated online courses and mentorship platforms.
So we're not alone in this.
You are not alone at all.
There's a whole community of people who are going through the same challenges and can offer support.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. And they want to help.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so there's really no excuse for feeling lost or overwhelmed.
Nope.
There's help available if we know where to look.
That's right.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot more confident about this whole 90-day challenge now.
Good. I'm glad.
We've talked about the mindset, the steps involved, the potential pitfalls,
Right.
and even the resources available to help us along the way.
That's right.
It's a lot, but...
And remember, the most important thing is to take action.
Okay.
Don't let fear or uncertainty hold you back.
Yeah.
The 90-day time frame is just a framework to create focus and urgency.
Right.
It's not about achieving perfection. It's about getting started and learning as you go.
So no more procrastinating or waiting for the perfect moment.
Exactly.
The time to start is now.
Now.
What's one small action our listener can take right now to kickstart their own 90-day challenge?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's brainstorming a list of side hustle ideas,
Okay.
researching potential markets, or even just decluttering their house to find items to sell.
Right.
The key is to take that first step and build momentum.
Okay, I love that it's all about taking action, even if it's something small.
Right.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's important to acknowledge that not everyone is wired to be an entrepreneur.
That's a valid point.
Right.
Not everyone is cut out for the ups and downs of starting a business, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, so if this whole 90-day challenge feels daunting or just not your thing, that's perfectly fine.
That's right.
There are other paths to financial freedom and fulfillment.
Absolutely. The key is to find what works for you and what aligns with your values and goals.
Okay, all right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this section. We've talked about the importance of validating your ideas, building an MVP, getting feedback,
Uh-huh.
marketing your product or service, avoiding common pitfalls, and even tapping into resources for support.
It's been a comprehensive overview,
Yeah,
and I hope our listener feels empowered to take action.
yeah, me too. All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into this whole undercover billionaire thing, let's come back to that original question, like, can you really get rich in 90 days?
Right.
I mean,
Well, we've established that it's highly unlikely for the average person,
Right.
especially without, that secret billionaire advantage.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
But even if hitting that $1 million mark in 90 days is a long shot,
Right.
for most of us, we've uncovered some pretty valuable gems along the way.
I think so.
Okay.
Think of it as like Undercover Billionaire Elite.
Okay.
The show might be a bit of a fantasy,
Right.
but it does offer, I think, a condensed crash course in entrepreneurial thinking.
Totally. I've talked about hustling, identifying opportunities, building a team,
Yeah.
scaling a business quickly.
Right.
These are all like valuable skills,
Absolutely.
even if we're not aiming for like billionaire status.
Right. And perhaps even more important is that mindset shift we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
It's about embracing challenges,
Yeah.
pushing your boundaries, and seeing what you're truly capable of.
It's like reframing the entire concept of success. Maybe it's not just about the money,
Yeah.
but about the journey, the skills you develop, the impact you create.
Precisely. Maybe you launch that side hustle you've always dreamed of.
Right?
Maybe you achieve financial freedom. Or maybe you simply prove to yourself that you have what it takes to step outside your comfort zone and build something from scratch.
So as we leave our listener with some final thoughts,
Yeah.
what's one piece of advice you would give to someone feeling inspired to take on their own 90-day challenge?
Don't wait for the perfect moment or for all the stars to align.
Okay.
Just start.
Okay.
Take that first step, no matter how small.
Yeah.
It could be jotting down some ideas, researching a potential market, or even just decluttering your house to find items to sell.
Right.
The momentum will build from there.
I love that it's not about grand gestures. It's about consistent action,
Yes.
even if it's just one small step at a time.
Remember, you don't have to have all the answers before you begin.
Okay.
The journey itself will teach you valuable lessons and guide you towards your goals.
So embrace the uncertainty, trust the process, and most importantly, have fun along the way.
Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe this 90-day challenge will lead you to $1 million business, or maybe it will simply lead you to a more fulfilling and empowered life.
Either way, it's a win-win.
Well said.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of undercover billionaires and 90-day challenges.
Yeah.
We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.